13. Biohazard. The next day, I went to Nihanium in the morning, but I was on the first floor, not the second basement. And I didn't go to the back, I stayed at the entrance the whole time. I waited for a skeleton to appear, pushed that guy out of the dungeon, and shot him down. If you defeat it before it disappears after it goes out of the dungeon, it drops one frozen bullet. Skeletons have a small target area, so you have to shoot an average of 5 bullets here and there to kill them. The calculation is to use 5 normal bullets and convert them into 1 frozen bullet. That in itself is fine, you can get a lot of regular bullets from sleeping slimes. The problem is waiting for the skeleton to appear. Even if you try to bring them out from the back of the dungeon, they will fight back against the rampaging skeletons, knocking them down on the way out. In the end, it was safest to wait here. After spending the whole morning doing this, I obtained 10 frozen bullets. It took me quite a while, so I had to use them carefully. In the afternoon, I met up with Emily on the second basement floor of Teruru. We formed a party and defeated the sleeping slime. If we hit it once with a regular bullet, and once with Emily's hammer. The carrot hunt was going well and we were going to make a lot of money today. It was going well, and we should try. While the enemy was weak. Emily. Yes, ma'am. I'll follow up, and when the next one comes up, just go for it. Okay. Emily nodded her head instantly without asking for details. I was a little happy to know that she had complete trust in me. After walking for a while, a sleeping slime emerged from the ground ahead of us. Emily immediately rushed forward with a huge hammer. With about 5 meters to go, she kicked the ground, jumped at it, and swung the hammer, aiming with a loaded bullet. She sharpened her nerves and pulled the trigger. The bullet caught the center of the sleeping slime. The moment it hit, the magic circle expanded, and the slime froze to a crisp. It became a block of ice nearly twice its original volume. Emily swung her hammer down with a smooth, unhindered movement. Boom! The frozen slime shattered, and the carrot dropped. I can do this. I stopped it from moving with a frozen bullet and hit it with a strong attack in the meantime. I learned this pattern from a video game, and it seems to work here, too. The problem is the effect of this freezing bullet. How strong are the enemies that can be frozen? What are the types? What is the range of the freezing range? I'd like to know more about that, otherwise it's hard to use it when it's needed. Well, it only takes time to get frozen bullets, but it is easy to get them. As I picked up the carrots with this in mind, Emily asked me with a twinkle in her eye, "Yoda-san, you're amazing." Yoda, you are amazing. What was that? As you can see, it's a bullet that can freeze the person it hits. As you can see, it is a bullet that can freeze the person it is fired at, but there is a limit to the number of bullets you can fire. But it's still amazing. The combo using the frozen bullets was a success for the time being. We then hunted for as many carrots as we could carry, roughly 2,000 pyro, and tried to leave the dungeon. We returned to the first basement floor and were about to go above ground. I noticed that it was raining heavily outside. It was raining sideways, and a strong wind was blowing into the dungeon along with the rain. Pikachu! Rumble rumble! The distant sky glows, and a few seconds later, thunder rumbles. It's raining. It's amazing. It's like a bucket of rain. I can't go home. I guess we'll just have to wait it out in the dungeon. I glanced at the carrots we were holding. Are these carrots going to be okay? Yes, sir. Emily, who has been working with me for a long time now, immediately understood my concern and answered immediately. She understood my concern and immediately answered, "Hagremono become like this when people are not around them. They will be fine if you are around them all the time." I see. Good. I sat down on the ground, relieved. I kept my gun in my hand so that I could aim at the slime whenever it appeared. As I did so, I looked outside. It was pouring down so hard outside that the depressed ground was flowing like a river. It was like a typhoon. With this kind of rain, I wouldn't be surprised if something collapsed. When it rains so hard, houses can collapse. I wonder if my house will be all right. It's a shabby apartment. I don't know if my house will be all right. And even if it collapses, the city of Nazarov is very close by. Sasiklos is a town where building materials can be obtained cheaply. Yeah? Oh, you mean that Nazarov has many dungeons that drop building materials, and the proximity to Nazarov makes transportation easy and inexpensive? Yes, sir. I see. I was beginning to understand more and more about this world. It's a world where everything is dropped, or produced, in dungeons, and people's livelihoods are based on it. For example, in Cyclo, where we live, there are 5 dungeons, and vegetables are cheap because they come from the dungeons, but meat and alcohol, which are transported from very distant cities, are a bit expensive. The logistics are not that developed, so the distance is reflected in the price. I am gradually beginning to understand such a world. In the end, the rain stopped in the morning of the next day. On the way back to the cyclo carrying the carrots, I came across a commotion. There were 2 people making noise, a middle-aged man and a young man. The middle-aged man was dressed in a flashy, rich-looking outfit with glittering rings and necklaces, while the young man was dressed like an ordinary adventurer. They are arguing by the cliff. I was curious, so I went up to them and asked, "What's going on?" "There was a luggage accident, yesterday's rain," the young adventurer-like man answered. A young man who looked like an adventurer answered, "A luggage accident?" I looked at Emily, who was standing next to me, for an answer. Cyclo is an agricultural town where all 5 dungeons produce vegetables, and since there are so many things missing, we import a lot of things from other towns. Yes, we were talking about that last night. Yes, that's what you were talking about last night. And when we say, cargo accident, we usually mean that the cargo falls, drifts, or is lost. Falling? Oh, right here at the bottom of the cliff. I realized what they meant by the 2 men fighting in front of the cliff. The men nodded. I walked closer and glanced down. It was a fairly high cliff, about 20 meters deep, and I could see what looked like a magic cart. I wondered if he had dropped his luggage there. It rained last night. I see. I was relieved. It was a good thing I had spent last night in the dungeon. If we had tried to force our way home, we would have dropped our stuff like that. Since we were using a magic cart, it's even easier to drop something we're carrying. Yeah, we don't have to go home. Wait. Wait, you mean at the bottom of this cliff, at this distance? Yes, sir. It's going to be a haggling thing over time. I see. I remember that and realize how hard it is. I look at the cliff again, there are no humans under the cliff, and poof, 20 meters away. If this is the case, that means that all of that stuff is going to be haggled together. But at least it's outdoors. I see, it's out in the open and it won't cause immediate damage, so even if it does, we can just get rid of it. It may be a loss of luggage, but it's better than causing human casualties. I was thinking. Well, it's a feminist thing. Feminist? Emily shook her head. She shook her head. She looked at the man and asked him with a look. It's a kind of monster. They are transparent and have no fixed shape. Is it a gaseous or ghostly type? They have a strong offensive power, but the trouble is that they possess people and use them as a breeding ground. It doesn't matter if you are male or female, if you find yourself possessed, you will be impregnated in large numbers. I'm getting sick. What a story, or rather a very bad story. So I have to get rid of them before they turn into HA Greys. The young man looked at the grown-up man. I'm not kidding. How much do you think that load is worth? Even at cost, it's worth 3 million Piro. But if we don't burn it while we have the chance, if it turns into a Hagrath, I don't care about that. Just figure out a way to salvage that thing. I can't. Look, it's stuck between those strange rocks, and it's that deep. It's impossible to pull it out. It's better to make it disappear at once. The men argued. One adventurer like man insisted that they incinerate it before it became a hazardous substance. And the other was a wealthy man who demanded that they do something about it because it would be a loss. I could understand what they were saying. Of course, I am in favor of incineration. If it was too late to do something about the troublesome monsters once we had released a large number of them, we should have done something about it before it was too late. It was too late. Anyway, oh. The rich man suddenly screamed, looked up to the heavens, shook and trembled, and blew white foam from his mouth. I can see something clinging around his body. Yeah. The young adventurer man held up his hand and fired a fire arrow, an offensive magic. The arrow missed. The rich man dodged it with great speed. It was not a man's movement, he was being manipulated. Gogia! The man screamed. He quickly pulled out his gun and fired a volley of shots. He was moving too fast and missed all over the place. He was faster than the manipulated adult male, Coca Slime. He hurriedly reloaded his gun and fired again, firing as fast as he could. I fired nearly 20 shots in the end, finally defeating the monster. A bullet dropped from the Hagremono and fell to the ground, but there was no time to pick it up. I hurriedly looked down the cliff with the young man. The magic cart is starting to break from the inside, something is coming out. No, don't. That's expensive. You're still doing that, oh. This time the young man started to moan. Before he could think, he fired his gun. He just kept firing wildly, shooting all around the man. After all the shooting, the man fell to the ground like a puppet with broken strings. Bullets dropped, the monster fell. The young man was dead or alive, but there was no time to check. I looked down the cliff, I could faintly see that monster in the distance. Right now, a magic cart, about to emerge from its cargo in droves. Run, Emily! I shouted as I loaded the bullets. I yelled because I had just heard the awful word, nursery. I pointed the muzzle down and put my finger on the trigger. I thought of something before I pulled it. Before I pulled it, I remembered something. I reloaded the bullets, as many as I could. I wanted to test the effect more first, but I had no choice. I launched as many frozen bullets as I had. I launched all the frozen bullets into the magic cart whose cargo was being haggled in large quantities. Immediately after, a huge block of ice was formed. Centered on the magic cart, a huge block of ice with a diameter of 10 meters was formed. Many translucent monsters, feminists, were trapped in it. They were like cognac in jelly. Yeah. Emily jumped down. She leapt down the 20-meter cliff and swung her hammer as hard as she could. Boom. Gravitational acceleration plus a huge hammer, Emily's blow shattered the entire frozen magic cart and Femini. Emily. At the bottom of the cliff, next to the monster disappearing without a drop of anything. I did it right. Emily had a big smile on her face.